All right, Tyler, here we go. In three, two, one. Hello, and welcome to Know the Score. I'm your host, Don Delarente. I'm joined this week by Tyler Ball. What's going on, Tyler?
What's going on, guys? You can check me out at TA Ball One on Twitter, and you can always use the hashtag and the Twitter at KTSPOD.
That's right. Know the Score can be found on CSPN.us. You can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, and SoundCloud. You can also follow along with the hashtag KTSPod. So, Tyler, we're going to get right into it. NBA action was once again fantastic as the NBA season has kicked off. I started a little bit earlier than usual as we got started on Tuesday night, as we had, like I said last week, the preview of maybe the Eastern and Western Conference Finals, as we had the Celtics travel up to Cleveland to take on the Cavaliers. But this game was marred, and the start of the season was marred by a gruesome injury to Gordon Hayward. He was going up for a backdoor, and his leg got caught up under him wrong on the come down, and he basically broke his tibia and dislocated his ankle. Just very hard injury to watch. Definitely took a lot of air out of the Celtics. They got down by almost 20, but they fought back. And Kyrie's last second three came up just short. Looked like it was going to go in. I think a lot of people in the stands in Cleveland thought that when he lined that up, that it was going to probably be the dagger, but fell just short. So the Cavs held on to win. Just kind of your thoughts on the game itself, and then we'll talk about Gordon Hayward and kind of what that move means for the Celtics moving forward.
Okay, just a very quick summary. The game turned out like I expected, um, even though you have the injury. Let's just say that Boston, it took a win out of the Boston fan sales, but because Kyrie Irving is in a rebel mode now, I know people are going to say it's the whole Mamba mentality. I think that Kyrie Irving, now that he has to have the controls, um, I think that Boston is still going to be a factor when it's all said and done this season. I just don't know if they have enough depth to keep up with the Cleveland Cavaliers or even the Washington Wizards, which we'll touch on in a second. But the Boston fans are in panic mode. But I don't think that Brad Stevens and Danny Ainge are ones to panic and blow up the entire season, because after all, it is the Eastern Conference, and all you got to do is hopefully stay healthy the rest of the way and get to the tournament, which is the NBA playoffs.
Now, do you think that this should change the expectations of the Celtics with this injury? Hayward was basically to be the sidekick to Kyrie, and looked upon to provide a whole bunch of scoring. So now they're gonna have to get that from probably two or three different guys to make up for his production. Um,
Um, for expectations, um, I mean, once you say you're a top three seed, I mean, the general expectation was a top three seed, and challenging Cleveland for the playoffs. So nothing's changed. Yes, you have lost a significant amount of scoring, but at the same time, it's not like you don't have guys who have proven that they can number one stop teams, and number two, uh, they can manufacture points too. They're not a bad free throw shooting team. All those guards can shoot free throws. You're going to expect a lot more from guys like Jaylen Brown, who is definitely improving as an offensive talent. He's already a legitimate defender. Uh, those guys would just have to step up and account for about 15 to 20 extra points. Let's think about this. If When you account for Gordon's 20 points that means uh let's say you have a full first five and a full and your top three. So 8 into 20 ain't but 2.5 points a game. So you get 2.5 point improvement from everyone that plays, then you make up for Gordon's 20 points. So I think that's doable. And I think because you're playing against the Eastern Conference, I don't think your expectations should change. Now, as far if you got Boston actually beating Cleveland, then that's another story. But I don't think a lot of people felt that Boston was going to beat Cleveland anyway.
All right. Now we'll shift it over to the second half of that doubleheader that happened on Tuesday night as the Warriors got their really big rings. And then they were out cruising along, handling the Rockets. And then Draymond got hurt towards the end of the third quarter. They started turning the ball over. And lo and behold, the Rockets, with Chris Paul on the bench, came all the way back. Took the lead, had the lead by one. Warriors got the last shot. Kevin Durant's bucket went in, but upon replay, the ball was still in his hand as the red light went off, and the Rockets steal the opening night win 122-121. Um, Very interesting not to see Chris Paul in the game down the stretch when the Rockets, excuse me, were doing most of their comeback. Um, if later found out that his knee injury is a little bit more serious than we thought, as he's now going to be missing a couple of weeks after playing over 30 minutes on that knee that first night. So, Tyler, just kind of your synopsis of the new look Rockets, and kind of now they're not going to have Chris Paul, so it's going to be a little bit longer for him to kind of get acclimated to his new role, since they don't really set up an offense in Houston. They just kind of get the ball and go. He looked a little lost at some points.
Which is why that very reason is why I don't think it's going to really hurt Houston all that much. I mean, they just go back to doing what they've been doing before. Get the ball to Harden, let Harden set it up. Uh, Honestly, Chris Paul allows you to. Chris Paul is really a playoff addition because he allows you to have James Harden get some favorable one-on-one matchups off the ball, and that's really what they need for the playoffs. I don't think it affects what they want to do as far as in the regular season. You're talking about maybe 12 to 15 games. All you got to do is split those, and you'll be fine. I think it's not as a big deal as folks consider it to be because they're going to try to outscore teams anyway. Now, here I'm going to take this a step further, and I'm going to use this game to talk about the Warriors' second game, which was last night against the New Orleans Pelicans, in which they fell down by as many as 15 in the first half, but then Kevin Durant emerged as an animal defensively. I really, really like the fact that Durant is making more of a concerted effort at free flowing on the defensive end because that takes the pressure off of Draymond, Iguodala, and of course Zaza or whoever's playing center at that particular time. Because now their strategy is funneling everything towards Durant, and Durant now is a shot blocker, and which is tremendous. That he's actually giving effort on the defensive end, and that's impressive to me. That means that he's watching film. He's staying active, and he's not going to be a one trick pony. So, I mean, it's a scary thought, but a guy like Kevin Durant being having a chance at Defensive Player of the Year is rather frightening. Mind you, the Warriors were the best defensive rated team last year. So if Kevin improves, if he keeps improving on his one-on-one defense, and now becomes part of the team defensive acumen, I mean, what else is there to prove for the Warriors? they got down 15, and simply because Kevin Durant was active on defense and gave, guys not named Boogie Cousins or Anthony Davis problems, they got back into the game and took the lead immediately after halftime.
Yeah, the Boogie Cousins, Anthony Davis, Twin Towers experiment still going strong, but they don't have enough perimeter or small forward guy to kind of go with them to allow them to really, be effective because, basically you let those two guys score all they want, shut everybody else down, then the Pelicans are kind of hamstrung. The second matchup that we had, marquee matchup, was the Cavs and the Bucks. We had the Greek Freak and LeBron facing off. Um, the Greek Freak is just so tough, man. 34 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists. He starts the game off playing point guard, coming down, setting up the offense, getting assists, taking, backing guys down. He's just tremendous. If you haven't watched him play like a whole game, I suggest at some point you do the next time the Bucks are on NBA TV or TNT or ESPN, because just the amount of things that he can do in the course of a game is just jaw dropping.
I have just one, and it's a very big issue, but I have just one issue with the Greek Freak. And this is going to be a question that everybody has asked, so it's nothing new. What happens when you play one of those defensive-minded teams in the Eastern Conference, like a Charlotte, or a team that does have some height? Let's say like a Minnesota. They're even though they're not as good as defensively, but they have a presence inside. What happens when you try to you pack it in? And this can actually doesn't necessarily mean the Greek Freak. You could be the Bucks in general. What happens when you decide to pack it in against the Bucks? You got they don't have the shooting that it takes to actually be a threat to the top three teams in the Eastern Conference. They're fun to watch. They make a lot of plays. They defend like nobody's business. I mean, that's the whole concept of Jason Kidd getting that team together. But the problems are still the same as last year. They're going to go through 2 and 3 or 4 minute stretches where they can't get a good look. And I'm just interested to see how they get around that. I want to see Malcolm Brogdon attack the rim more, and I think a lot of teams are going to take 2 or 3 steps back from those guys and see if somebody other than Chris Middleton can hit a shot from the perimeter.
They've invested in Tony Snell. He seems to be kind of their sniper that they're going to be counting on this year
I
to
don't trust him, but
to
yes,
see if he can,
provide
provide that.
I think they gave him $50 million.
Yeah, to see if he can be that 38, 41% three-point shooter that you kind of need, that consistent three-point shooting threat. It'll be interesting to see once Parker comes back, if he's had enough time to kind of stretch his game out far enough where his three-point shooting is a little bit more consistent. If that turns out to be the case, then that may be the player right there that you don't have now that you add to the mix that kind of, relieves that pressure that they can't pack it in on because, not only is he a threat slashing to the basket, but, if his jump shot is that much more improved, then, he'll be a difficult cover as well, probably harder than the Greek Freak because, at some distances, the Freak's jump shot is not as consistent as you would like to see. So,
yeah, definitely anything outside of 16 feet.
Yeah.
It's a win. It's a win for your defense if Greek Freak is sitting in the perimeter taking 16 footers instead of going to the rim trying to dunk on you. I'll still say that about Milwaukee. However, they're going to be fun to watch because they get active on the defensive end. They're going to create some fast break opportunities, and Everybody loves the Greek Freak in the open court.
Speaking of exciting players to watch, of course, with the new season comes rookies and some guys who basically who aren't rookies but are making their debuts due to injury. So, two of the most notable names we had out of the first opening weekend are Ben Simmons and Lonzo Ball. Ben Simmons debut with the 76ers. Again, they've got him playing, point guard, doing a lot of setting up the offense, bringing the ball down, initiating things. He had nice debut first two games. He's scored over 15 points, had over 5 rebounds and 5 assists. So just talk about one more piece to the process up in Philly with Ben Simmons. This is finally the year where they kind of take the next step up to being on the edge of the playoffs. I don't know. A lot of teams, a lot of people, excuse me, are saying that they're kind of a wild card to maybe improve enough to get into the bottom of the playoffs. I think they need to grow a little bit more first. But Tyler, your thoughts on Ben Simmons and the 76ers?
I absolutely love watching Ben Simmons play right now. He's actually on a team that can finish plays, that can push the ball up the court, especially with a healthy Joel Embiid. Um, he's got Markel Fultz on the wing, who looks like he's going to be a factor. Even though the veteran guys like Jared Bayless, uh, you kick it out to them, and Bayless can hit from the perimeter. So you give a guy like Ben Simmons options, he is going to make your team a much better team going forward. Uh, and on top of that, he's already looking to drive and finish at the rim, which he obviously knows his strengths. Um, he is looking to put the ball on the floor, get opportunities inside, or you post him up and let him make the pass. Kind of reminds me of what LeBron wanted to do early on in his career. Uh, not a direct comparison to James, but early on, LeBron was the consummate slasher his rookie season, and he got a ton of points because he knew he had a first step, and once he could beat his man, it was 4-on-3 at the rim. So if Simmons sticks to that plan, and he provided Philly can hit some jump shots around him, uh, I don't think that the eighth or even the seventh seed is out of the realm of possibility for the Sixers. Uh, Going forward, we talk about Lonzo Ball, uh, the much hyped and much awaited debut of Ball uh, against the Los Angeles Clippers. I actually watched this game. I was, and it looked like Lonzo was a kid, fresh off his UCLA, uh, his last game at UCLA, where he was a little bit passive. And maybe it was because you had one of the best one-on-one defenders in the league, really taking onus to guard him literally in his grill in Patrick Beverly. Uh, Lonzo, with Beverly guarding him, only took 2 shots and was really literally knocked off the ball from Beverly. Even committed 2 turnovers. Beverly literally picked his pocket for a layup, and then in one sequence, which pretty much summed up the game, Lonzo was trying to get around the pick with Brook Lopez, and he frustrated Lopez so much that Lopez extended his hip out and caught Beverly and got the offensive foul. And Beverly's on the sideline pulling his Tony Allen, screaming "First team all defense." And of course, Beverly took to the microphone after the game and said that he alluded to Lonzo Ball's father, LeVar, and his antics and all the things he said, that a lot of guys in the league are going to be coming for Lonzo, and he just needs to be ready to play. Of course, Lonzo agreed with that assessment, and he said he would be ready. And game two last night against the Phoenix Suns. Of course, it's the Phoenix Suns, but Lonzo looked like he was more aggressive and took some shots and was ready to play. Finished 12 of 27 from the field in the game. They literally held on and won 132 to 130 on the road. Uh, Lonzo finished just an assist shy of a triple double. He had 11 rebounds and 9 assists to go along with I believe 27 points. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be some up and down times for him, like any other rookie. I think that a lot of the Laker fans were just fully disappointed. I had quite a few chats on Twitter about the Lakers and what's going on, and a lot of fans are gloom and doom because they look so bad. I just think that bottom line, I think Lonzo himself is worth a 10-game improvement, but the Lakers are just going to be the Lakers. They got to add some more talent and some more pieces, but I really think that Lonzo is their point guard of the future.
Just before we move on from the NBA and the Lakers, how long do you think it's going to be before Kuzma is starting?
Um, I don't know because Luke feels like Luke is kind of Luke kind of has this concept where he would like to have both units scoring equally.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's gonna stick with Clarkson for a while. But I think that it's got to be the chemistry between Kuzma and Lonzo. I think that matters. Right now, Clarkson looks like, and this has been going on for the last couple of weeks. Clarkson is more active. Clarkson looks like he can create his own shot a little bit better than Kuzma right now. So I think Kuzma is going to be the leader of the second unit. And if he emerges to be a starter, it's going to be somewhere around maybe a couple of months from now. Then let's see what the first 20 games, what Clarkson and Kuzma do, and then Luke will probably make that switch.
Okay. Yeah. He's been a standout during the training camp, during the workouts, during preseason. He's very consistent. He stretched four, so he's got a good looking 3-point shot. He's very versatile, can score on the inside too. So I think that Kuzma may be the key to their season. He's just, there's
Yeah.
a lot he can
Oh,
do.
definitely.
He's a lot more explosive than Larry Nance Jr. is right now, playing that kind of same spot. So I don't know. That's the guy that I would kind of see would kind of get the short end of the stick if there was a lineup change. I just don't see what Larry Nance brings to you besides being a guy who can jump high and run
Right.
fast. So,
Right.
so
And to
th-
be honest, uh, uh, so I think they're going to they're having a lot of defense. They've had defensive issues for the last 4 years, so nothing's changed there. But good gosh, Blake Griffin did basically anything he wanted on the defensive end. I mean, they tried to go big and play Bogut and Nance and Lopez, and that team would look like it was stuck in the mud on the defensive end. So I have there's no clue. There's no clue out there on how to defend stretch fours. So that's probably what's going to keep them from being a player, a emerging from the basement and keep them under 40 wins because they're not going to be able to defend, and they're probably going to be bottom three worst defensive teams because they are just super slow. They're long, but they're slow, and
all right.
anybody with any kind of foot speed or any kind of size is going to just out quick them to the rim, and they're going to get whatever they want in the post. So yeah, Lakers got a ways to go.
Okay. So at this point, just a reminder that this is Know the Score. Know the Score is brought to you by CSPN. You can find us at cspn.us. Visit our website, check out Know the Score and all our other great podcasts here on CSPN. So we're going to shift over to the MLB. Playoffs are still going on full effect. We have the Los Angeles Dodgers. They wrapped up their series against the Cubs 4-1. Strength of the bats really woke up in this series. They beat the Cubs in the final game 11-1. Kershaw with a great performance. Only blemish was a long home run he gave up to Chris Bryant. Other than that, he looked a lot better. Best performance he's had in the postseason so far. So they finally accomplished what has probably been about 3 or 4 years in the making for most people. So the Dodgers are back in the World Series. Tyler, assess their chances, against the Yankees or Astros, and then we'll shift to talk over to the American League.
Pitching, 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 pitching. This time it's a little bit different for the Dodgers because, for one, Kershaw is going to be able to set the tone in Game 1 of the World Series. He's not going to be coming off of short rest, which is an advantage. There's a really weird stat that no team since the '93 Phillies has won after winning the pennant first. All the World Series winners were the second team to win the pennant, and maybe that's because that team that was second was kind of pressed into making some creative decisions around their pitching, and they got great performances out of their lineup shifts. But it all comes down to getting quality starts from Kershaw and whoever they decide to back him up with, whether it be Rich Hill or Yu Darvish. Darvish is probably the second best trade deadline acquisition, other than Verlander, which we'll get to in a minute. But he brings balance to that pitching core. So I like them, and actually the Dodger bats have been the most consistent bats of any team in the postseason. So
Right.
they can get around. Even Yasiel Puig, who was essentially left for dead, he's actually had a great playoff run. Of course, you have your mainstays this season in Bellinger and your other guys. Bellinger is probably the rookie of the year. He's pretty much secured that. But as long as they attack whoever staff they get, be it the Yankees or the Astros, obviously work the counts, particularly Dallas Keuchel and Verlander. You try to extend them, and you can definitely do that with the Yankee pitching. So they're definitely going to have the advantage on either one of the winners. It's just that Houston brings a little bit more power across the board. But I would still favor the Dodgers to win it all.
All right. Over in the American League, the Yankees and Astros will square off in a winner take all game 7 as the Astros jumped out to a 2-0 lead, winning both games at home. The Yankees, with their seeing shifting bats at Yankee Stadium with some dramatics, won all 3 of those games to hold serve. The scene shifted back to Houston last night as Justin Verlander, masterful, got out of a couple of jams, held off the Yankees. The Astros got enough of a lead, and they actually did the one thing that you want to do if Aaron Judge is going to hit a home run, have it be when he leads off the inning. So they had a 3-1 lead going into the 8th inning, and then Altuve, he answered with a home run. They kind of got a 4-1 lead, and then from there, stretched it out a little bit to win 7-1. So now we're going into game 7. The Yankees bats. The story of this series has been basically the home team has had the hot bats, and the road team hasn't been able to get anything going. So now tonight, the biggest game the Astros have played in the history of their franchise versus the Yankees, young team. Most of these guys, the biggest game that they've played in. Who's got the advantage tonight, Tyler?
Um, well, it's going to be weird. I'm going to say because of the pitching, it's got to be the Yankees. Um, Yankees are putting Sabathia out on the hill. Uh, Houston definitely is going to have to attack this by committee. You don't know what I don't know if they're going to. Um, I don't know if they're going to go attack this by committee, but I can't see Morton going more than five. I can't see it. I think it's going to have to be done by committee. I think you bring in, and even if you have to bring in a guy like even you have to bring a guy off a short rest. I'm just not sure uh if Morton's going to be your guy. Uh, I have trust in Sabathia. I think that he comes up with a great performance tonight. I think the Yankees have a chance. Um, but it's all about who works into the bullpen.
Right.
Who's gonna
And so,
get that? Who's gonna get that hot inning? Who's gonna get that hot inning where they can put 2 runs across and change the complexity of the game? And this may happen multiple times.
yeah, this has been Houston's biggest problem in the games in New York. Their bullpen just got really shaky on them, and the Yankees were able to come back in the late innings. They weren't able to hold the lead, so that was a big spot, a couple of big spots last night where Verlander stayed in the game, and I think that was directly because they just didn't want the bullpen to have to pitch too many innings. 2 innings is kind of their max right now, and if the Yankees can get them to where they need to go 4 or 5, yeah, the Yankees should have the advantage coming into that part because their bullpen has been really strong in the games where the Yankees have had to kind of stretch their bullpen. Their bullpen has kind of come through and held them in a few games. So, game sevens usually turn out one or two ways. Either the home team jumps out early and it's a blowout, or we get an all-time classic. So, hopefully, we get the second one where we get an all-time classic and we, the best team will win. Last piece of
I'm
news.
leaning toward. I'm leaning toward. I'm leaning toward a Yankee. I'm leaning toward a Yankee win. Uh, you know, I'm anticipating somebody, whether it be somebody booting a ball or something, or a couple of borderline pitches that calls that don't go Morton's way. I'm anticipating the Yankees getting out to an early lead, and then that's where the strategy comes into play. Yankees go up 1 or 2 to nothing. What does what does Houston do? Do
Right.
they stick with Morton, or do they just throw caution to the wind and go and try to steal innings from their bullpen? I think the longer Morton goes, the better Houston's chances are.
All right. Final bit of MLB news is Dusty Baker will not be returning as the Nationals manager. They have decided to not renew his contract after this season, move into a different direction, according to their words. Um, Kind of saw this coming if you follow the Nationals or just baseball in general, just the way that they flamed out and Dusty, being right at the helm of the decisions that led to the flame out in the playoffs. I thought at the time the way that they lost Game 5 at home, strictly with the way that he used the bullpen, that that would probably get him fired, and well, not really fired, but not brought back since he was at the end of his contract. And that's basically what happened. Bryce Harper not happy. Again, he has to go through another managerial change. I think this is like his third manager in 7 seasons.
Time is
So
ticking.
yeah, so
The
he was
clock is ticking.
he's
Yeah.
basically got into the press and said that he thought Dusty got done wrong and should be brought back. So, is this the last hurrah for Dusty Baker? And kind of what do you see for the, what type of manager do you think the Nationals need to get them over the hump?
I don't know if it's the last hurrah for Dusty. Dusty will always. I think Dusty can leave on his own terms because teams are always going to need a manager who can manage the regular season. They're going to always need that. They're going to need guys who they're always going to be looking for managers who can get them through, and then build a team that's in the basement, build them up, get some talent around them, and he will get them through that regular season and probably win them a bunch of games with the talent. However, this ain't the only rodeo that's involved Dusty and his lack of great decision making in the postseason. Um, it is very clear that the Nationals have been in win now mode for about 3 years now, and we're nobody in the baseball world is surprised. That's been the knack on Dusty for years. Going back to his days with the Giants. I mean, with the Reds, excuse me. I don't know. And then the second question obviously is, who do you replace him with? Do you go after a veteran manager, a guy who has a ton of experience in the postseason? Uh, a guy, for example, Boston just let go of their manager. Do you go after him? Uh, I mean, there's so many questions right now. They're at a crossroads because this is the one decision that is going to make or break whether or not Bryce Harper stays in DC. That's your only chance to keep him in DC. Let's put it that way. I think that you need a manager that's not afraid to take chances in the postseason. I think Dusty is a bit too conservative. I think that you have to go out and get somebody that is proven. For example, Girardi has probably shown why he will remain a Yankee, and for some reason, the New York Yankees have been playing with house money, but yet you kind of felt that he was almost on the chopping block had the Yankees not advanced beyond the first round, which is totally unfair. The Yankees coming back and getting it done was probably the worst case scenario for the Nationals because I think that they definitely would have gone after Girardi.
All right.
Which would be weird to see him in another uniform, but I think they would have made Girardi a huge offer that he wouldn't have passed up.
I think they're gonna maybe try to go with someone a little bit younger. They may give a guy a first time guy, maybe a guy who's been a bench coach or been in the majors, just hasn't got a chance yet. But I think they're gonna go with somebody who's really heavy on analytics. That was one of the things that kind of Dusty was opposed to, and their front office is real big on the analytics, and so there was kind of that friction going on between Dusty, going with his gut and doing what he sees versus the front office, who a bunch of guys who are saying, well, by the numbers you should do this and do that. So I think that's probably be the one thing that they'll be looking for is somebody who's into the analytics and into using the advanced numbers a lot more than Dusty Baker was.
Mm-hmm.
Just want to let everybody know that today's podcast is brought to you by audible.com. You can get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/know the score. Go to audible.com and find over 150,000 titles that you can choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Again, that's a free Audible download and 30-day trial at www.audibletrial.com/know the score. So please support Audible and know the score. We're going to move into the NFL as Christmas came early once again for the Dallas Cowboys, as their injunction got upheld. So Zeke Elliott, after last week's show where we thought he would be off the field, he's at least going to be back on the field this week against the San Francisco 49ers. So Tyler, you can talk about Zeke's injunction and preview the game with this next little few minutes I'm going to give you here. How does this kind of week to week nature you think going to affect the psyche of Zeke and of the team?
Um, I think it's to be honest, I don't think that it affects the game. It will obviously affect the game plan whether he's here or if he's not here. But I don't think the long term of it, the long and short of it, is that if he's there to play, then he's gonna be there to play, and your game plan is essentially going to be almost the same anyway. So I think it's almost a plug and play situation for Dallas. They have to take that attitude because right now they're almost one more loss from being in panic mode, especially with the winner of the Eagles and Redskins uh kind of leading the charge and separation in the division. So right now the Cowboys need to win. Uh, two games that they felt that they at least had the edge in. They definitely felt that they should have won against Green Bay, and they also felt that they kind of gave away the game against the Rams. Both games at home, by the way. So now you're kind of behind the eight ball because you've lost two at home, and you got to get this one from Frisco. It's almost a must win right now just to keep pace. And considering that you play, you got a little bit of a gauntlet over this 4 game stretch where you've got the Falcons and you've got you've got the Redskins coming up as well. So this is going to be a huge game. Um, but we did see that the Niners improved against the Redskins. They uh, brought in C.J. Beathard from Iowa, who looked good in his time as a quarterback. He made a lot of throws, hit a lot of windows, got their screen game going. Um, the Niners aren't the team that's just going to roll over and lay down just because they're not great defensively. So uh, this one's going to be hard to predict, but I think I'm going to take Dallas going away 31-17.
All right. Yeah, San Francisco definitely upgraded their quarterback situation by putting Hoyer on the bench at the end of the first quarter, and C.J. Beathard came in, and of course, the backup quarterback that nobody has any film on that you didn't game plan for has an advantage, and he just went out there and played ball, and he almost snuck out a win. So it'll be interesting to see after a whole week of practice and game planning. Kind of, what he does to a Cowboy secondary that isn't really that good. If San Francisco can keep the front four off of him a little bit, he'll have time to get some things down the field. And San Francisco 49ers have had a bunch of drops, so if their receivers are holding on to the football, they can definitely give Dallas a better game than most people expect.
This is a scary game because quite honestly, I personally believe that Dallas has the worst secondary in the league right now. I think it's even worse than the Saints, to be honest. Uh, it's quite bad. Just because of the lack of experience. I mean, I know we're playing young guys. You're starting two practical rookies at corner, so I mean, Anthony Brown had a ton of experience last year, but I still consider him a rookie. Uh, you know, and of course, you do have a true rookie, Jordan Lewis, who actually has played well enough to the point that Dallas cut their big free agent acquisition in Nolan Carroll, uh, which kind of surprised everybody considering all the injury issues that the Cowboys have had at the defensive back position. So uh, that's good news from the draft standpoint that Jordan Lewis is panning out and he's going to get better. But it's still bad, and I think Beathard is going to find some opportunities uh, on Sunday.
Shifting over to someone who won't be finding too many more opportunities, at least for the next upcoming Sundays. Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers went down with a broken collarbone against the Minnesota Vikings this past week. They say he may come back for week 15, but I mean, unless the Packers are in a win or lose situation for the playoffs, I don't think that they're going to risk him, especially if they're, 4-11 or whatever they're going to, 5-10, 5-11, 4-12, 6-10, somewhere around there. So how does this open up the NFC now? As you know, most people would figure Green Bay would have made the playoffs, so that's probably one less playoff spot, or excuse me, one more playoff spot open for somebody, either wild card or the division now in NFC Central. Just talk about the domino effect of Aaron Rodgers missing most of the season.
I'm not going to be the guy to necessarily count Green Bay out. I think Brett Hundley is he's a playmaker. I think that you're going to ask a lot of him right now, but it's the black and blue division. Minnesota is notorious for having letdowns in second halves of seasons. As we can see, Detroit is looking Detroitish. Uh, they've got the offensive tools, but you still got Matthew Stafford at quarterback, and you're only as good as he goes. So, I don't think you could just hand the division off to the Vikings or the Packers, and I mean Vikings or the Lions, and say, "Here, it's all yours." I think if Hundley shows what a lot of teams feel that he can do, he may not be able to hit the big plays or make the single plays that quote unquote only Aaron Rodgers can make. But if he doesn't make mistakes, or if he's able to, keep the interceptions down and make a few plays, they've got some talent at receiver. The real question is, can they run the football? And that's right now. That's hit or miss. But I don't necessarily say they're out of the playoff hunt until they're out of the playoff hunt. So we'll see. Right now, I can't pick between the Vikings or the Lions because of quarterback play. I mean, I can't trust the Vikings quarterback situation because you don't know if Sam Bradford's going to be healthy. You also don't know if that means you got to rely on Case Keenum. And of course, I just mentioned Matthew Stafford. So, it seems like Stafford doesn't know what to do with and it's not just Stafford. I think it's the whole coaching staff. They have no idea what to do with a lead. It almost seems like it's an on-off switch, and they only turn it on when it's time to come back. So it remains to be seen.
All right. And the most shocking score from last week, the New York Giants, with no receiving core, went in to Mile High in Denver and upset the Broncos on Sunday Night Football to get their first win of the season. Their young rookie, Evan Ingram, had a career day, most catches, scored his first career touchdown, has most yards in the game. Giants looked like they might have found a running game as their running back got over 100 yards. McAdoo gave up the play calling duties to his offensive coordinator, and we had a noted change in philosophy that was more of a necessity than maybe by choice. But the result was the Giants went in. Their defense played good, played hard, got a bunch of sacks, flustered the Broncos running game, and the Giants pulled out their first win. So, Tyler, how shocking was that? And have the Giants finally found an identity for themselves to kind of play with to try to be competitive the next few weeks?
I don't know if I would say shocking because you know it's Trevor Simeon. I mean, he was due a bad game. However, given all things considered, don't forget the turmoil, the internal turmoil that the Giants had when you had Rogers Cromartie suspended, and not only was he suspended, he was sent home literally as he went to Tennessee State's homecoming, his alma mater, and showed up there while he was serving his suspension, however brief it would be. I'm anticipating he may even play on Sunday. Um, but despite all that, the Giants pounded Denver's inside linebackers, gave the ball to Orleans Darkwa, and uh, Darkwa actually found some room to run, which was the Giants win at the line of scrimmage. Um, yeah, that was interesting to me. The fact that
Yeah,
Darkwa finished with well over 100 yards rushing.
well, a big
But
story was that Coach Sullivan, who is the offense coordinator, basically reshuffled their whole line. Like he kept Flowers where he was, and then basically just took everybody else and moved them around into a different position than where they normally would play. And it seems to have kind of been the magic trick to shore up their shaky offensive line at least for one game and provide some running.
yeah, well, as they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, maybe they can find some holes and who knows. But did it save the season? No. However, did it prevent all heck from breaking loose in New York? Probably so. Um, but as they say, the NFL is a week to week league, so we'll see. Um,
Right.
I just think that the it's a lost season for the Giants, and I think that a lot of guys are playing for their jobs right now, including the quarterback.
Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting to see how Eli finishes this season if they can keep his attempts down and he completes more with fewer attempts and doesn't take as many sacks. His stats and his numbers could actually turn out good enough where you can justify him getting a chance to come back. But then next year when they get all their people healthy, if they go back, they're trying to let him throw it 35 times a game, then he may regress into what he was at the beginning of the season. It's very tricky with Eli Manning right now at this point in his career because he's always been able to lose you games without much help, but he could also win you some back in the day. But now it's not to that point. He needs a lot more help than he's ever needed before. So their style of play may have to change up considerably if they want to keep him at quarterback after this year. Speaking of which, we had a thriller on Thursday night as Derek Carr returns to his old former quarterback, coming off his second game plan after a broken back, as they got the win over the Chiefs. The Chiefs have now lost two in a row. Looks like that their secondary seems to be an issue, even though they have Peters back there. Looks like Mitchell is going to be the guy everybody's picking on, and he's not living up to the test. Amari Cooper, 11 catches, 200 yards. Derek Carr, 400 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. First time the Raiders have kind of looked like the Raiders that we thought they could be since the first game, opening weekend of the season. Give me your analysis on this game. Basically, it came down to the wire. Oakland got 3 chances down near the 1 yard line, two with no time on the clock as Kansas City committed penalties. And Derek Carr finally found Michael Crabtree in the corner of the end zone, tied the game at 30. And then, of course, the field goal makes it extra point, makes it 31. So 31-30, Raiders over Chiefs.
I'm going to say this without hyperbole. The best Thursday night football game that you may ever see. It was that good. You had everything that you needed. Division rivalry, drama, all the drama that you want. And great playmaking, insane playmaking down the stretch. Obviously both teams had their chances to win. Both teams also probably could have lost it as many times as they had chances to win. In the end, just came down to Michael Crabtree getting open, as the receivers have been doing all game, and just finding a spot and sitting down and making a perfect target for Derek Carr. And now, the Raiders aren't done yet. They're not done, and of course, they win next week. They're right back in it. I mean, it's hard. It's really hard to say because Kansas City played extremely well. The NFL season so far is that Andy Reid's offense is working. But it was time for the Chiefs defense to lay an egg, and they did. Amari Cooper was outstanding. He's back. I've been so disappointed with Cooper that I left him on my bench in one of my fantasy leagues, and obviously I am the joke of the week because Cooper ended up with 44 points. But it's good to see him back as the number. What was arguably the one of the better secondaries in the league, but now you got questions. Do you still try to run and attack Justin Houston? I mean, it's a lot of there's some questions now. Pittsburgh used the screen game and got LaDavion Bell in space, which is their strength. And, there are ways you can attack the Chiefs defense now. So we'll see what other teams try to do.
All right. So now we're going to move on to this week, week 7. We're going to preview 2 top games as we have the Patriots going back to Atlanta to play the Falcons. The Falcons are reeling as they blew a 17-0 lead to the Miami Dolphins. Let Jay Cutler and those guys come back to defeat them 20-17. The Patriots are coming off a win, much harder than expected against the New York Jets. Jets took them down to the wire. Probably a bad replay call away from going into overtime with the Jets. So, your initial thoughts? I know the Falcons have probably had this game circled since the schedule came out, but they're not playing very well right now. Their defense is, being exposed here the past couple of weeks. And of course, we've seen the Patriots struggle with their offensive line, not being able to protect Brady, not being very consistent or very good on defense. They're giving up almost 500 yards a game on defense. Their secondary is in shambles. So, is this game going to be just high flying Falcons trying to look for revenge against the Patriots defense? You can't stop anybody.
That's exactly what I'm looking at it as. 2 teams coming off embarrassing performances. The Patriots did get the W, but
I'm sure they were not happy at giving up a 14 spotting the Jets 14 points. Uh, Atlanta, uh, they have to be embarrassed. Losing to Jay Cutler, of all people. Oh, by the way, they forced 3 turnovers. So I don't think Atlanta's defense is the problem. I think that when your offense all of a sudden can't move the ball um, and puts your defense in terrible field position, you're going to give up points. And eventually it caught up. Um, but this game, I would say start all your offensive fantasy guys that you have for the Patriots and the Falcons because I think this is going to be a shootout, just like it was in the Super Bowl. I don't think their defenses have gotten any better. I don't think that the uh, the acquisition of Stephon Gilmore has worked out. Um, I mean, their Patriots aren't cutting him, of course, but it's not good. What's been going on there so far? So I think if Atlanta attacks him with Julio Jones, I also think that Atlanta's got to go back to doing what got them to their success last year, and which is balance with Freeman and Coleman. Give them running backs the ball. Give them opportunities to get into space. Maybe even use the screen game. Get those linebackers outside. Don't let Hightower just stay in the middle and just pound your running back for 2 or 3 yard gains. Get him outside. Patriots still have Gronk. Atlanta still has problems covering tight ends. So I think it's going to be very competitive on the other side. But this is typically the one that the Falcons can steal because I just think that their defense is slightly better than the Patriots.
All right. Now we're going to shift the scene over to Monday night as the Redskins are going to travel to Philadelphia to take on the first place Philadelphia Eagles. Basically, this is if the Washington football team can win this game, then they, keep their chances for winning the division alive. If they lose this game, then they're going to have to, battle for the wild card more than likely. And this is a chance for Philly to distance themselves from the division, start out 6-1. They'll have like a 3-game lead on everybody in the win column at least. It's about 2.5 game lead to work out to the loss column. So I'm looking forward to seeing what type of secondary the Washington football team is going to be able to trot out there. Josh Norman still is recovering from broken ribs. Bashad Breeland got injured his knee against the San Francisco 49ers. He's been practicing. They've been both practicing, but of course, they're game time decisions. A lot of our whole secondary, a lot of guys got banged up against San Francisco, so it's going to be interesting just to see who they have to put out there against Carson Wentz, who's been doing a lot of his damage on third downs. It's going to be very difficult because the Washington football team has a difficult time checking Zach Ertz, and that's the number one look on every play for Philly. So if you have Zach Ertz in your fantasy league, I suggest you start him because he usually has a big day against the Washington football team. Offensively, just got to keep Kirk Cousins clean. Try to find a little bit of a running game. Chris Thompson had a big game last week against the 49ers, kind of keep incorporating him, but we need to be able to control the clock and be able to run on first down and get 4 or 5 yards. So if Robert Kelly comes back this week and he plays, he needs to play a whole game. I don't think he's played a whole game in the 9 or 10 that he's actually started. I think he's only played like 2 whole games. So it'd be good to actually see him finish a game. And again, like I say every week, a little bit more from the wide receiver position. Doxson caught a touchdown pass last week, but that's really all he did. Pryor had a couple of catches, but he's going to have to, really step up and start influencing the game. We need him to get 8 or 9 catches on the outside, mostly for first downs to try to keep us on the field. I think is the again with the Redskins, third down. If they're making third downs on offense and getting the other team off the field on third down on defense, that's a really big key to their success moving forward, not only in this game but for the rest of the season. So, how do you see that matchup, Tyler? I know Dallas will definitely be tuned into that one because that's basically, if Philadelphia wins, that's just going to make it that much harder for you guys to make a run late in the season and win the division.
I'm just gonna say right now, I'm not one of those fans who says, I hope both teams lose. I'm not one of those silly guys. I can almost say if Philadelphia wins, Dallas can focus on 2018. That's how big, that's how difficult the gap is going to be to make up if Dallas falls 4 games behind the Philadelphia Eagles. Considering that the division has the toughest of interconference schedules out of all of the leagues. I think that if Philly wins, they're going to pull away from the division, and that lead will almost be insurmountable, to be honest. I know Philly started out 5-1 last year, but if they start out 6-1 against this schedule, yeah, you can pretty much salt away the division because Philly has a beautiful home schedule too. Over the next 4 or 5 weeks. So they really could get on a roll and win the title. It could be 6-1. You could actually find them staring at 9-1. So I think that as far as the game itself, throw to set up the run, throw when you have throw on first down, throw when you have favorable second down, and of course, what's coming on third down. Philly needs to take advantage of their matchups here, and their matchups, as you've already mentioned, Zach Ertz, but they've got a couple of other threats too. Alshon Jeffrey on the outside, playing very well. Nelson Agholor is actually playing his best football of his career so far. I want to see their third receiver, the rookie out of North Carolina, Hollins. He made a couple of big catches last week against Carolina. Get him in some 1-on-1 in the slot. Just throw the ball down the field. If Philly does that, they honestly shouldn't have a problem with this game. As long as Carson stays upright, as long as he gets protection, he should be able to make any throw he wants.
All right. So that's a little bit of preview for week 7 coming up in the NFL. So, Tyler, at this point, I'm going to open it up for your final thoughts and shout outs and thank yous.
All right. Just want to say, my shout out is actually going to be for the Good and Terrible Show, our former podcast on the CSPN. They've, of course, gone out and ventured on their own, and they're doing pretty well. And I can actually already see the differences as they've kind of stepped away. If you were listening to them, you can actually go on their show on iTunes and download. Shout out to the Rasslecast as they had an anniversary episode this past week. As we are recording, I am on my way to Aggie Stadium in Greensboro, the home of the North Carolina A&T Aggies. They are the 11th ranked team in the FCS poll. Today they're playing against Bethune-Cookman as they are going for a school record 8th straight victory to start the season. The school has never started the season 8-0 in almost 90 years of football. They're practically they're by far the best HBCU football team in the country across all divisions. They also have they have 2 players on the Walter Payton Award watch list, which is equivalent to the Heisman, in quarterback Lamar Raynard and offensive tackle Brandon Parker, who is likely going to be drafted. So there's plenty of talent. This is well on their way to be one of the top HBCU teams. You can make an argument in the history of HBCU football in the modern era, provided if they run the table and win the MEAC and win the Celebration Bowl. So looking forward to that, and I'm actually looking forward to some top more HBCU football. There's a bunch of talent. There are probably 8 or 9 NFL draft prospects playing this week. Look at Bowie State's Amir Hall at quarterback. Look at Tennessee State, that's got a couple of defensive players that will likely be following the footsteps of Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie into the NFL. So if you're interested, check out my man Stephen Gaither at HBCU Gameway on Twitter at HBCU Gateway. And you can also check out Gaither's personal Twitter at Stephen J. Gaither.
All right, thank you, Tyler. My final thought this week is just going to be the reemergence of Penn State football. Penn State, of course, in the news for all the wrong reasons a few years ago with the Jerry Sandusky thing, and then of course, they lost all the scholarships, and nobody seemed like they wanted to go there and step in. And James Franklin took the job, and he had a rough couple of years. Even last year, after they lost to Michigan, people were still kind of on the, well, James Franklin may not be the right man for this job. But he persevered, got those guys back on course. They haven't lost a game since, and now comes Michigan. The game comes around again tonight as we record this, and so it's going to be a whiteout at Penn State. They're going to have the all-white uniforms. They're ranked number 2 in the country. It's going to be the ABC primetime game, and it's just going to give a chance for everybody in the country to see that Penn State is back as being a powerhouse in college football, and to give a big tip of the cap to James Franklin for staying the course and getting those guys back into the national talk and being a major player in college football. So,
just wanted to before we go,
yeah,
I just wanted to make a correction. The site, the website, the Twitter app for HBCU Game Day is hbcugameday.com and at HBCU Game Day. Just wanted to get that clear. And check them out and see where your HBCU talent is.
All right. So for my co-host, Tyler Ball, I'm your host, Don Delarente, and now you know the score.